A very good evening to everyone present in the session. So, when we are in our academic session, like when we were in MIT, we saw the gap between the academic modules and the knowledge that is required that is in the practical world, right? Because in the litigation world, we require entirely different knowledge and different skill than that is required for the motive skill and the debating skill. And also the pattern of drafting is quite different. Taking that in mind, we have drafted this course, Advanced Legal Drafting, to help law students to excel in their career by encouraging them to participate more into litigation and come up with a good draft. We have today Advocate Akshay Srivastava. He is advocate of Supreme Court of India. He has graduated from Lucknow University in 2009 and has been practicing in the High Court, High Court of Allahabad High Court, and he has published several magazines and he has written several articles. He has started his practice in constitutional law and represented several landmark cases. Today we'll be having session from Advocate Ashish Srivastava on the said matter. Over to you, sir.
Yes, a very good evening, everyone. First of all, I thank you so much, Amar, for inviting me in this webinar. Today's topic is tips and tricks of the legal drafting. So, the first of all, I want to start it with the maxim which is very prominent in this field, which says that verba volunt scripta manent. It means spoken words fly, but written words remain. Because as we speak, so our words, oral words, doesn't remain in the minds of the people during the course of time, but the words we write into the drafting, the petition, it remains for several years. You must have seen the drafting of the British era. It is still available in the museum of several high courts and as well as Supreme Court. So the importance of the legal drafting comes from there only. It is a very important subject, although many of us don't have uh, skills to master it, but during the course of practice, we can do it. The written word is one of the most important tools of the legal profession, as you know. Takes time to master the superior writing skills. But you can take steps to improve step by step. There are some fundamentals to it, which I have for you people. I have just jotted down into 7 parts. The fundamentals of legal writing. I will start from it only. The first fundamental is remember your audience. It is very important. Every word you write should be tailored to the needs of the reader. The reader is very important. You should communicate, you should be able to communicate what you want to communicate. That is why the skill to write is very important, and keeping in mind the reader who will be reading your draft is very important. The brief submitted to the court must advocate and persuade. The most important thing is that the drafting, what you do, the message you want to convey, it should advocate as well as persuade the court. Then only the court will agree with you, and then only it will grant some relief. Yes. So there are 3 aspects to it. First, you should analyze the issue. Analyze the issue. What does I mean by analyzing the issue? Is that you should submit your facts properly according to the hierarchy. The date wise, that I want to say that you should submit your facts date wise. Analyze the issue. What is the dispute between the parties? Between the plaintiff and defendant, what is the issue? You should analyze it clearly. and then report the state of the law. Once you have done with the mentioning the facts, then you should state the position of the law. The law position of the law comes from various judgments which have delivered by Supreme Court and High Court, and then recommend the appropriate course of action. What will be the appropriate course of action according to you, which will benefit your client as well as the defendant? So, what will be the most prominent, most beneficial course of action in which the courts will be able to do justice? That is the most important thing. So, the first and foremost, before you get into the writing skills, the first and foremost you have to remember is that you should remember your audience. And then the second, the fundamental of legal writing is this: organize your writing. It is very important, guys. Many of people think that we have a very organized writing, but it's not so. In the legal field, it should be very precise, very concise. Organizational skills, what it will do, it is the key to successful legal writing. Introduce your subject in an introductory para. With the introductory para, first of all, you should introduce your subject in an introductory para, a small para in which you should introduce the subject. Use some transitional phrases in that, as for example, furthermore, however, or in addition. These three phrases you can use while introducing your subject. Then there should be gap between each para, and every topic should include one sentence. That will be all. One sentence to convey your message will be all. The legal drafting doesn't mean the writing of 20 pages of drafting. It doesn't require 20 pages. The court doesn't have time to read your 20 pages. So it should be concise. You should convey your message. You should use the topic and you should concise it into a sentence only. Then use headings and subheadings. You can use subheadings and heading as well to break up the text what you want to convey. As I said earlier, limit each para to only one topic. One topic and one para is sufficient. At last, sum up your message with a concluding sentence. Once you have given your introduction para, then you have jot down the topics involved in that, issue involved in that through one para each. And then the last, you should conclude your writing by giving a message in just one sentence. What it will help? It will help to guide the reader through your text and promotes readability. It will guide the reader. It will be helpful to the reader to understand what is your grievance, what is the issue involved in this petition. And it promotes readability. At the same time, he will be able to read your petition. He will be able to understand the issue involved in there, and he'll be able to get onto the conclusion, onto the solution, which will help both the plaintiff as well as the respondent or defendant in any case. The third fundamental which I want to suggest is that ditch the legalize. Specialized legal phrases can make your writing attractive, guys. We don't need special words or special phrases to introduce our message or to convey our message. We can do the same thing by using a simple language in it. The more simple language is, the more clear message we are giving to the court. For example, we can use herewith wherein so ditch unnecessary legal lies. So it will favor and the your client, and it will be clear to understand for the court. So it promote clarity. Try reading us, and last, once you are done with the drafting, then use your sentences. Try and get a colleague who helps you, who reads your sentences and suggests you if any changes are there. It will help you a lot during the course of your career. It will help you a lot because in the beginning it is a bit difficult to just formulate a para which gives a clear message. So a friend into a same profession, it, you can help him, he can help you both ways. It can go both ways. So if a friend or colleague reads your you reads your drafting and suggests you, you can use it by substituting abstract words with simple and concrete terms. For example, what I mean by ditching legalize means that, for example, I'm giving you a sentence. I'm in receipt of your correspondence. It is a sentence. I'm in receipt of your correspondence. Now it is an abstract word. For making it simple, we can write I received your letter. It's more clearer. It gives a clear message to the court. It gives a clear message to the defendant or plaintiff in that case. So instead of I'm in receipt of your correspondence, we can easily write I received your letter. So that is why I said ditch legalese. We don't need to use such words or such sentences which confuse the court. Right? So the fourth, as I told you, fourth fundamental, I've said earlier, many of times every member of the legal society must have told you, be concise. It's very important. You don't have to write an essay in our petition. You don't need to do that. Remember, in our law school, we are used to write answers, lengthy answers. Okay, everyone here must have written a lengthy answers, and we must have got numbers also. We are in an impression that if we write a lengthy answers or lengthy petition, the more we'll be able to convey the right message to the judge. It is not so in the case of legal field. The more concise you are, the more clearer message you are giving to the court. Every word you write should contribute to your message. Right? The one more thing, omit extraneous words and shorten complex sentences. We don't need, I have told you earlier, we don't need to use extraneous sentences, words, and we need to shorten our complex sentences. Okay, for that matter, I've jotted down a para for you guys. What I mean by shorten complex sentences. I'll just read out to you a complex sentence and then I'll give you a more shorter version of the same sentence but in a clear way. So it is as due to the fact that the defendant has not attempted to pay back the money owed to our client in the amount of rupees 3,000, it has become absolutely essential that we may take appropriate legal action in order to obtain payment of the aforementioned amount. So it is a sentence, it is a complex sentence. Most of you guys must have not understood. No clear message we are giving through this sentence. It is a sentence containing 44 words. So what will be the shorter sentence in which we are able to give a clear message to the judge? The shorter sentence or the more concise sentence will be, since the defendant has failed to pay rupees 3,000 owed to our client, we will file a lawsuit seeking reimbursement. That's it. So the whole story was that the defendant owed me, my client, rupees 3,000. He failed to pay this amount to me in the due course of time. Now, the action which is to be taken by me is to file a lawsuit for recovery against the defendant for the recovery of rupees 3,000. My concise statement is of 18 words in comparison to a lengthy sentence of 44 words. So, the message what I'm trying to give is that the more concise you are, the more clearer message you are giving to the judge, and it is getting more easy for a judge to understand you, because you need to understand that a judge sitting in a day is dealing with, maybe in a trial court, dealing with 100 of cases, 200 cases sometimes. Sorry. In Supreme Court, in a High Court, a judge sitting in a day is dealing with around about 70, 80, 90, 100 sometimes. So he will not be in a position to read your abstract sentences, complex sentences, and then make notes and then give you a relief what you want. The concise statement will help him to understand the issue involved, and he'll be able to provide you the right relief. Okay, so it is the most important thing is to be concise. It will help to clarify the meaning of the sentence and adds impact. At this one point of time, it will clarify the meaning of the sentence, and the other, it will add the impact. Now I'm coming to the fifth fundamental of legal writing. It says use action words. Now, what I mean by use action words? Use action words means the punchline we need to use in between our drafting. What it will do, it will make your legal prose more powerful, dynamic, and vivid. Add punch to your writing with verbs that bring prose to life. Okay? Add verbs, add a punchline to your sentences. At the same time, you need to be concise, right? But add some punchline to it. Like, for example, the defendant was not truthful. It is a sentence, the defendant was not truthful, right? Now, by adding a punchline, what I will say, the defendant lied. So it gives more impact. It gives a clear message that defendant lied. Defendant was not truthful. It's a message, right? Yes, yes, punchline can be Latin maxims. We can use Latin maxims. Okay, by giving the meanings, you need to give the meaning also. Not need to use the punchlines. You need to give the maxim also. So the defendant was not truthful. The more punch, the more useful line would be the defendant lied. Now, the second example, the witness quickly came into the courtroom. The witness quickly came into the courtroom. It's a simple word. Now, by adding a punchline to it, I'll say the witness bolted into the courtroom. It gives an impact, it gives a weightage to your sentence. Okay. So these are 5 important fundamental rights, fundamentals of legal writing. The sixth fundamentals out of the total seven fundamentals which I have jotted down for you guys. The sixth is avoid passive voice. It's one of the important aspect of legal writing is to avoid passive voice. The difference between should we use vocab? Yes, we'll get into a question answer mode. Once I finished the topic, we'll get into the question answer mode. So then I'll be able to answer all your queries. Yes. So what I was on avoid passive voice. The difference between the passive voice and the active voice is that the passive voice disguises responsibility for an act by eliminating the subject of the verb. The passive voice doesn't suggest that who is acting when who has done the act committed. At the same time, the active voice tells the reader who is doing the active and clarifies your message. By using the active voice, you will be able to convey to the reader that a particular action has been committed by a particular person. For example, a simple example I am giving you guys, the deadline was missed. It's a simple, the filing deadline was missed. It's a passive voice. Now, what will be the active voice of that? The plaintiff's counsel missed the filing deadline. Now, by using this sentence, we have conveyed to the judge that plaintiff counsel has missed the deadline. So it's important to use the active voice instead of passive voice. A crime was committed. It's a passive voice. A crime was committed. Who has committed crime? We don't know. Now, by using the active voice, we can say the accused committed the crime. The accused one, accused two, in case of several accused involved in a particular commission of crime. Accused one has committed the crime, accused two has committed crime, whatever it may be. But by doing that, by using the active voice, we have suggested that who has committed the crime, a particular crime. So it is very important to avoid as much as passive sentences and use as much as active sentences. It will help you to understand when you will maybe after notice period when you will sit and revise your case for the next date or for the next hearing. It will help you as well, not only the judge or the court. It will help you as well. A simple reader who is reading your brief will understand that who has committed the crime and who is on fault in the particular case. Now, my last suggestion or the last fundamental principles of legal writing would be editing. Edit worthlessly, guys. Omit unnecessary words and rewriting for clarity. What I mean by editing is that once you are complete with your drafting, you should sit on and just go through your drafting once again. See what unnecessary words you have used. Clarity is coming out of your drafting or not. And you should avoid rewriting of sentences. There are many occasions when we sit on doing drafting and we are tend to rewrite the same thing after a gap of paras in between. So we need to avoid that. We don't need to repeat the sentences. As I have said earlier, that you should be concise. At the same time, you should convey your message in a concise form. Okay, but at the same time, you should not repeat again and again the same message you want to convey. Once you have written your sentence, once you are done with your sentence in one para, okay, your petition might be small in words or in length, but your message which you are trying to give should be strong. The petition might be of 8 paras or sometimes 80 paras, it doesn't matter. If you have given your message clearly in 8 paras, it is sufficient enough. And if you have failed to give your message in say 80 paras also, then it is not sufficient. The judge will throw your petition out. So it is necessary that we should edit once we are complete with the drafting. We should edit it and we should omit unnecessary words and rewriting for clarity. Proofreading, as you say, is of paramount. So by doing editing, what we'll be able to do that, sometimes there are spelling mistakes, punctuation or grammatical mistakes. We'll be able to do that. We'll be able to correct that, because if you have come in this field, it is believed that you have a strong command over your spelling, use of spelling, punctuation, gram, grammar. So grammatical errors are not allowed. So in the document, you shouldn't. By what is the objective of editing? If someone asks me, is this that you should avoid spelling mistakes, grammatical errors, because these sorts of mistakes will undermine your credibility as a legal professional, right, guys? At the same time, I these are the 7 fundamentals of the legal drafting. I know the the way of writing of everyone. The way I'll just finish it off, and then we'll have the question answer session. Then we may address all the issues at once. So bear with me for some time, and then I'll just answer all the queries you guys have. What I was saying, that everybody has a different way of writing, right? But if you have entered this legal field, it is supposed that you should have a concise and you should have a basic way of writing, and it doesn't come in a day. I'll give you the name of the book as well. So it doesn't come in a day. You don't become a master of legal writing in a day. It will all come by the course of time, and it will come during the course of time and by practice, day in and day out. Okay. So what I will suggest you guys is that you may, if you have senior to you with you who can guide you, you should read his briefs. He must be having briefs. Okay. So you must get into a habit of reading his briefs. It will help you to understand in what particular situation what kind of drafting is needed. And by practicing it, you'll get into a habit of it. Don't don't think or don't expect that you will get a master in one day or in 1 month. The legal profession is all about learning from day one till the day you are a lawyer or you are able to do legal practice. Your body allows you to practice. It's a learning process. So to start with, what we can do is that we may start reading the briefs of our seniors and see in what particular situation what kind of drafting is needed. And most importantly, guys, start if you are if you have interest in going into practice or otherwise also, because everyone will be attached in some or the other way. Okay, so I'll suggest that apart from reading briefs, you should start attending courts as well. What will it will do is that you'll understand what the judge, what is the demand of the court, what is the demand of a particular judge. So into the practical world, when you get into the practical world and you are put to questions, you should have answers to it. Okay, so for that, for experiencing that situation, you need to attend court as well. Apart from reading the briefs and the judgments, you need to attend courts as well. I'll suggest you all guys to attend courts as well for an hour or 2 hour in a day, not full day. Don't waste your time sitting in a court in full day. It will not solve the purpose. For an hour or a 2 hour will be sufficient to understand you for it to you to understand to understand what is the demand of the court, what the court wants in a particular situation. For example, in a matrimonial dispute, what are the general questions which are put to the counsel of a lady as well as of a husband? Okay, so it can only happen if you attend the court. Okay, so you will learn during the course of time. So these are some fundamentals of legal writing. So just one more thing, as Amar, I must have told you that I'm an advocate on record in Supreme Court of India. So I just want to talk about something about that also. So advocate on record is a very prestigious position in the Supreme Court of India, and for that we need to clear examination, which is called advocate on record examination, which consists of 4 different papers. So the first is of drafting. So whatever suggestions I have given you today, 7 fundamentals, it will help in that in a drafting paper. The second is the legal aspect, the leading questions paper. So in leading questions paper, they give you the 40 or 50 leading cases from the period we have become independent, and till now there are about 50 or 60 leading questions. So these questions comes from them only. And the third paper would be the practical procedural part. So as you all know that Supreme Court has a different procedure altogether. It is not same as high courts or trial court. So, so doesn't it is it has limited original jurisdiction. It is an appellate jurisdiction court. Otherwise, it has a limited jurisdiction. It has original jurisdiction only in disputes of states between the states. So it, generally it is a appellate jurisdiction. So most of the high courts and the trial courts have a larger original jurisdiction in comparison to Supreme Court. So Supreme Court has a appellate jurisdiction. So for that, a practical procedure paper is there. And the third one is the ethical paper. Yes, you guys are allowed to attend the trial court. There is no such bar to that. You can go and attend the trial courts. There is no such bar. You can get attached to a advocate and then you can attend these hearings in the trial court. So the fourth paper is of ethics. The ethical you must all have read the ethics paper in your curriculum, in your academics. So it is nothing new. So my object to let all you know about the advocate on record examination is that most of us don't know about this paper. For example, for some initial years of my career, I was not aware of this examination. There's some senior colleague who told me about this examination, who motivated me for this examination, and who motivated me to come from Lucknow, where I was practicing, to come to Delhi to practice in Supreme Court of India, and then give advocate on record examination. And I am very happy to convey and to let you all know, people, that I was able to. I was the lucky guy to have cracked the examination in my first attempt. So all you guys, whoever wants to pursue or wants to become advocate on record in the Supreme Court of India, you can connect to me. You can take the number from Amrish, connect to me, and then I'll let you know what to do and what not to do for this examination. But for the initial years of practice, so the most important requirement of advocate on record examination is that you need to have a 5-year practice. Before that, you cannot give the examination. So first 5 years give to your career. Don't try to run behind money or try to get more and more briefs. You need to learn first. You need to learn how to apply to the you need to learn how to apply a law to the set of facts. For that, you need to read your briefs of your senior, which will help you in getting to know how to apply and what kind of drafting is needed in a particular situation, and attending the trials and the high court proceedings, which will help you in getting to know what are the questions, what are the situations which a counsel of a party is put into it, and what are the appropriate answers which a good counsels are giving. You need to, what I should say, stock the good counsels. The good counsels are very rare, so you need to stock them. You need to attend the proceedings in which the good counsels, the counsels which have name, which have success in their particular field need to hear them. How are they addressing the code? How are they putting the facts? How are they applying the law to the set of facts? So, at last, my suggestion, because I know the young lawyer has a burden to prove himself in this field and to get a final product. But you need to give some time to yourself, to your career. I'll say 5 years. You need to give 5 years. Sorry. You need to give 5 years to yourself in just learning. And then you will start getting fruits out of it after 5 years. Apply this principle, and in future you'll get to know about the success of this principle. So I'll not take more time and finish my finish it. Amresh, over to you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, sir. Thank you for your kind wisdom.
Thank
I'm
you.
sure, I'm sure this session must have been helpful for law students and advocates as well. Those of you want to ask question, they may come ahead and ask few questions. We have some time.
Yes. There are a lot of books. There are a lot of books available in the market. One such book is R. Venugopal. He's a lawyer of Supreme Court. He has written a very good book. You'll find it on, I think, on Flipkart and Amazon. It is available. R. Venugopal, The Skills of Legal Drafting. This is a subject, skills of legal drafting. So read it. Maybe it is helpful to you. But as I said, that just follow the 6, 7 fundamental principles what I have told you. The skills of legal drafting will only come through practice. I'll be very frank with you. Will come only through practice. Read your seniors brief and get an opportunity to write briefs or write summary for your seniors, and try and get into a habit into it of writing briefs. So, so the next question is, Kushi sir, could you can you repeat your answer? Uh, Sir, could you give some tips on how to draft a plaint, especially in consumer forum? Yes. So in a consumer forum, plaint is drafted as a civil suit only. Need to, as I told you, you need to summarize your facts first. You need to address a issue which is involved. The consumer forum is all about the default of the respondent, default on service. So you need to address that issue, and then at last, you need to conclude your drafting by paying a compensation to it. So it is more or less similar to civil suit, but in the difference, only difference in this is that you need to address the default of service, okay, which will be the main issue involved. So yes, someone has Swati Gupta has written 7 fundamentals of legal drafting. So Ravi Ahuja asked me, are these specific format for application and submission different stages of trial other than formats given in the appendix of CPC? So I should answer first to Ravi Ahuja. So there are some formats available in CPC. In every textbook, there are some formats. It will help you follow that format. But in between the formats, you need to add some something which is unique, like I told you, which is the terminologies or the punchlines which you need to add to it. You can use that, but you need to more or less you need to follow the format given behind the appendix in the appendix of the book, right? So, so the next question, sir, Khushi is asking me, sir, when do we write a legal notice? So the legal notice we send when a client has some grievances he has suffered on the hands of defendant, and before getting into a litigation, like example, if you have a grievance against a state government or against a department of the state government, then you need to give a legal notice under section 80 CPC. It is mandatory there. So the prime example will be that only. Otherwise, through a legal notice, we try to uh, we try to extend our grievances to the respondent and to suggest him that unnecessary time will be lapsed in the litigation. So you should address my grievances of my client, and we should compensate. Okay, so the objective of the legal notice is that only. So the prime example, as you say, is that if I have a grievances from a state government or a department of the state government, then it is a mandatory provision under Section 80 CPC to give a legal notice. Otherwise, my suit will not be maintainable.
Good evening, sir. Am I allowed to ask a question?
Yes, yes, you can answer.
Well, thank you so much, sir. This has been a wonderful session so far. And sir, I have a question like how a corporate legal drafting differs than the normal like criminal and the other civil drafting. So
Okay.
does the content remain the same, or if the terminology we use in a different way, then how we can like start and how we can which book and which is the particular practice you can suggest us to follow the path. I mean the book and any recommendation for this and the course.
Okay. So for
Thank you.
Mr. Rahul, for the corporate purpose, more corporate disputes are involved of violation of contract, right? There, you must have heard that there was a contract between the two parties, and one of the party has defaulted it, or one of the party has violated it. So we get into the corporate dispute. So in the present scenario, for the corporate disputes, there is an Act of Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code (IBC), and for that, the disputes are filed or the claims are filed before the National Company Law Tribunal, in which you have in every state and the appellate bodies in New Delhi. So the only difference which I mean, it will be between the corporate legal drafting and the normal civil suit is that you need more to focus on the violation of the contract or the violation of the terms and conditions which one was supposed or one was expected to follow and which he has failed to do. Okay, So that is the basic difference. Otherwise, uh, in the drafting purpose, the basic structure of the drafting remains same all throughout. There's no much, there's not a much of difference in every drafting. So there are some differences between that. Like I've told you, the difference between the corporate and the normal civil suit drafting is only a, you need to focus more on the violation of the contract. Okay, in a normal suit, there may be one dispute, one issue, or maybe one or more issue. But in the corporate dispute, normally the primary issue is the violation of the terms and condition, or violation of the terms of the contract. Okay, so the basic difference is that one. Otherwise, the drafting remains the same. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for addressing my question.
So Maninder is asking, should we use our vocab like usually we use word falsely implicated in criminal cases? Can we use word malevolently instead of falsely? Now, Maninder, I just if you are in the webinar, you must have heard me of suggesting you not to use the legalized words. Ditch legalized words. Ditch the words which are complicated. Ditch the words which are not easy to send a message or to convey which are not easily conveying your message to the court. Like if we are using falsely implicated, it gives a clear message that I have been implicated falsely. Now, if we use malevolently, it is a difficult word. Okay, it is good to write in a answer book, but I'll not suggest you to use the words in the legal drafting. The legal drafting is all about as simple as it can be. As simple as the legal drafting will be, it will more convey a clear message to the court, and the court will be in a position to offer you, to give you a good relief in that particular situation. Because I said that there are hundred of cases listed in a day. Judges will not be in a position to understand your drafting if you use these words. So be as simple as possible. Thank you.
All right. So thank you very much, sir. Thank you for coming forward and helping law student in developing their skills for drafting and litigation as well.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank
Thank
you
you,
so
sir.
much. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, Amrish.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.